icon pattern. When I say I propose, is this. I believe that this is true. I believe I found this thing, not that I'm so great, but that I see this, that this is the key to identifying the alphabet and the meanings of the letters. I've read books that say that even the linguistic archaeologists, the historians of the science of writing, do not know where the meanings of these letters came from, nor can anybody prove that this is what they mean. So when I say, I'm proposing this, I'm not saying, this is it, you can take this word for it. It's like, I see this. I can show you how I see it and see whether you see the same thing. But I'm not trying to claim that I've got the authority to tell you this is really what it is. Just so you understand. If I call it art, I can say anything I want. Picasso called it art, and nobody can say he's wrong. Did Picasso draw the picture right of the, fragmented images? It's art. But if I call it science and, this is true, then anybody can come up and try to disprove it. But if I show you what these letters mean, so that you can see the story yourself, now it's a matter for thinking. And Yahweh himself said, you will speak of these things. When you sit in your house, when you walk in the way, when you lay down, when you raise up. You will teach them to your children. You will write them on your hands and have before your eyes, and write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Now remember the letter bet? Letter bet. You had the personal space, the head, and then you've got the public space, the tail, like the tent. When you lie down, that's your personal space. When you rise up, now you're in the public space. Teach them to you'll think of them, that's your private space. Teach them to your children is reaching out to public space. Doorposts of your house is your personal space, and on your gates, that's the private space. So there's this thing. When you sit in your house, the personal space, when you walk in the way, the private, there's bet matters embedded in that. 4 different times he says it, but there's this bet imagery of the personal and the private. The personal and the social. So what I'm saying is that once you recognize these letters, you see these themes are embedded all through Scripture. And what I'm suggesting to you is that Yahweh himself is not only revealing himself, but in these letters he's revealing how he made the universe in a physical matter, but also in a psychological consciousness is also embedded in these alphabetic letters. So there's this one fellow by the name of Stan Tenen. I've got his name at the bottom of the chart down here. He's an astrophysicist. He used to live in San Francisco. He's in Massachusetts, Boston last I heard. I don't know what he believes. He used to not be a Torah-observant person at all, but he's of Jewish ancestry. He started wearing a kippah after a while. You can find him on the internet. Brilliant, genius guy. Stan Tenen, Miru organization, the Torah, so this thing that fits in your hand. 30 years studying Genesis 1:1. Doesn't believe the text. Doesn't read the narrative. He's studying the sequence of letters. 30 years. He finally put the numeric equivalent, Aleph is 1, Bet is 2, Gimel is 3, Dalet is 4. He put those into XYZ coordinates with base 3, so you got 0, 1, 1, or 0, 0, 1, or 0, 1, 0. Put them into base 3, plot them on the Cartesian coordinate, XYZ graph, and found that it fit this geometrical shape. So he has this thing on the internet. I heard about him like 20 years ago or something, and he calls it geometric metaphors of consciousness. It's like, but he looks at the Zohar, the Kabbalah, and all that other stuff, and doesn't make it wrong. But he found some astounding things just from looking at the letter sequences. What I'm saying is that people have turned this into all kinds of mysticism, but I'm not doing that. I'm just trying to show you what the letters mean. So, what does it mean, going back to Ezekiel 36:23, if Yahweh's complaint against his people is that we have made his Shem, and I would say that all these letters, if you know what these letters mean, the whole thing is a Shem. Well, his name is Yahweh, or his name is Ehyeh, Asher Ehyeh, I am that I am. I'm suggesting that his entire meaning of the alphabet is his Shem, because it's his fame, it's his renown, it's his occupation, it's his stuff he's concerned with. We can talk about that more if you want, but if you say, if the matters that are embedded in the alphabet and in Hebrew language in the Torah is his Shem, and he says, you have made my Shem Kalal instead of Kadosh. And we say, okay, Yahweh, when are you going to do it? You say, when are you going to step up to the plate and turn these things around? We keep standing here praying. We keep asking. Wait on the Lord, and in his time, he'll do it. We keep waiting. We keep waiting. Generations come and go. Hundreds of years pass, and still we wait. Why doesn't he change things around and step in and save his people? What's going on? What did he say in Ezekiel 36:20? You guys, Israel, have made my name halal, my Shem halal, my reputation halal in the eyes of the goyim nations amongst you who've been scattered. When you, Israel, make my name kadosh, then I will make it kadosh. And halal means punched holes in, perforated, punched holes in, perforated, hollowed out, drained out, empty, vile, desecrated, vulgar, common, detestable, a priest of questionable lineage, and a priest deprived of the priesthood, starting something new. You know, it sounds to me like the story of Jesus Christ. It sounds to me like what Israel has done, though they were scattered into the nations, that they have told the great Shem of Yahweh as if it was the story of Jesus Christ, instead of the Kadosh things of Yod He Vav He, which is embedded in the Hebrew. Because you see, these letters in the Hebrew lines up with the festivals. These in the blue line up with Pesach. These line up with Festival of Unleavened Bread. These line up with Shavuot. This with Yom Teruah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, and Shavini Atzeret. And if we get rid of the festivals and tell the story of Christmas and Easter and All Saints' Day, Halloween, and change Shabbat to Sunday, and yet both this speaks of Shabbat and the Zadi speaks of Shabbat, what have we done to his great Shem? We have made it halal. We have punched holes into it, emptied it out. Who was Yeshua? Well, the rabbis considered him to be vile, profane, vulgar, and common. So they got the Romans to punch holes into him, hollow him out. They deprived him of the priesthood, and they questioned his genealogical descent. Gee, it all fits the word halal. So they killed him and buried him. He came back to life. But what have the Christians done to the Torah? After all, Yeshua is the Torah made flesh. What have the Christians done to the Torah ever since him? On account of him, they've rendered the Torah vile, profane, common, vulgar. They've punched holes into it. They've drained it out. They have not considered the legitimacy of the words of the Torah to be the priest or leadest Elohim. Any priest should be speaking words of Torah. And they have questioned the legitimate descendancy of the Torah to be valid today, fitting the word halal. So the rabbinical leaders of the Jews took Yeshua, the Torah made flesh, and made him a halal. And the Christians, on account of Yeshua, ever since took the Torah that was made flesh, but the Torah itself, and rendered it halal. And Yahweh says, I'm not doing anything until you guys make my name Kadosh. My Shem Kadosh. How do we make his Shem Kadosh? Because if he's sitting up there waiting, and we're sitting here tapping our feet saying, what's going on? It's up to us. How do we do it? If you don't know Hebrew, you don't know what this is talking about. So what's Kuf Dalet Shin? If you look at a cup, and you pour water out of the cup, here's a liquid coming out of the cup, right? That's where we get our letter Q. That's this letter Kuf. It's otherwise drawn as a sun on the horizon. Well, how does that equal that? It's a straight line in a circle. It's the eye of the needle. All these things with the letter Kuf. And you could say, well, where did they get a monkey's arm out of it? A monkey has this long arm that he reaches into the future, or he has this long tail that he can reach out and hang it. So here you have the monkey, and you got this long arm, or you got the monkey with the long tail. But the Kuf literally means after this, or what comes next, or later on. And it also means, yeah, right, fat chance. It's such a distant, remote possibility, it probably just isn't going to happen. All that is embedded in the meaning of the letter Kuf. So if you could sit there and say, well, Kuf is not only to pour something out, but Dalet Shin is where we get the word for douse. There's a street called Dosh Road up in Portland, and it's got this one Jewish synagogue with these, it must be 80 feet tall, these stone tablets with the words written on it. Dosh Road. Well, if Dosh means to flood with water, make something clean, I don't know if they named the road after they put the synagogue there, but it's just this tremendously huge tables of the Ten Commandments, and that's Dalet Shin. If something that comes out of Yahweh's mouth, his mouth, not man's mouth, if you look at Hebrew as saying, well, there was a Tower of Babel and all the different languages spun out. Hebrew is just one of those languages. Babel means confusion. There's nothing special about Hebrew. Or if you say, well, Hebrew might have been an archaic language, but there was cavemen. You go, scratch it and all say, well, that became Hebrew. But fortunately, we cleaned it up and we made it Greek. And then we cleaned it up from there and we made it English. So who would want to go back? Well, the thing is, that's not kadosh. That's halal. That would render it profane and common and kind of vulgar. But kadosh means something that comes flooding out of Yahweh's own mouth, purely of Him. That's kadosh. The word kadosh is otherwise translated as holy, or sacred, or sanctified, or set apart. Completely non-human. Completely of Yahweh's personal design, His personal expression right out of His mouth. And there was nobody there to edit it for Him, or to translate for Him. This is simply what He articulated. Now, if that's truly Hebrew, then that makes it different than everything else on the face of the earth. How should Israel, or us, make His name Kadosh? We'd have to comprehend what Kadosh is first of all, then we'd have to find out what is His Shem, which is Kadosh, and then we have to start doing it. We would have to find, now think about this for a minute, to live into Ezekiel 36:23 and make it happen today. What do you think we'd have to do? I just kind of said it, I'll say it again. You read Ezekiel 36:23. And you read a few verses before that, and he mentions this thing about making this Shem Kadosh and versus halal in the eyes of the nations amongst whom we're scattered. So first of all, He's got to scatter us. Well, we today are scattered, and yet we're still scattered compared to everybody coming back to Jerusalem, or back to the land of Israel, Haaretz, Hamakom, the place. So we're still in that position. Has this ever happened before in the history of the world, that His people has made His Shem Kadosh? Hebrew was not even spoken until just a few short years ago, when one guy came back to the land, after, I think it was after the 40s or so. He started speaking Hebrew and teaching his family, right? Yeah, but you can find it on the internet, I forget this guy's name. But anyway, he revitalized the language. Now, has anybody else ever come back and made his name Kadosh or Halal? No, you don't even know what it is because you don't speak Hebrew. And you, okay, Yahweh says, I'm not going to step in and light this thing up, make my great Shem Kadosh, until you guys make it Kadosh. And it's like, what? How do we make His name Kadosh? We've got English, we've got Latin, we've got Greek. Nobody speaks Hebrew. We can't possibly. Do you have to be speaking Hebrew to make His name Kadosh?